on this one, I'm going to quickly give an overview of our view on things, and particularly the gods. There's a misunderstanding with the gods that I think people get as like a stumbling block. It really holds them back. This is basically how the gods should be perceived. Think of it this way. We all know that there's a massive amount of number of different gods and goddesses in the world. It's actually unreasonable to think that there's only one, because the mass majority of history, the mass majority of the world in the modern age, and the mass majority, well, just of history itself, has always spoken of more than one. It's a relatively new concept to speak of only one. I mean, relatively new is in the grand span of human existence. It is very, very new to only speak of one. But with that in mind, if you look at all the other gods and goddesses, it could become a problem when you try to think to yourself, which one is the right one? Well, the right one versus the right one for me is a different scenario. If you're trying to find out who's the true God, implying that there's only one, that's difficult to point out because it doesn't exist that way. Now, the right one for you is another scenario, and we'll get into that in another video. But what I want to focus on is the gods in the general sense. There's something that we all should be mindful of. In all the cultures, there's a general theme. There's a mother goddess, a father god. There's a god of war, a goddess of fortune, a god of knowledge, a goddess of beauty and sexuality, often referred to as a fertility goddess because we have issues in the West bringing up sexuality. So just label it fertility, right? Okay. And it goes on and on. The list is not small. But the reason for that is because there are primary gods that exist. There is a Father God who created everything. This is true. In all religious texts, you will find that there is usually a prime God who comes and creates everything, if not also involved in creating the other gods. There's a good argument for the biblical idea of the Elohim and why the Father God said, "Let us make man in our image." Now, of course, many people like to say that has to do with the angels. Well, then that would imply that the angels are in the image of God themselves, thus have a divine nature. Theology gets tricky when you start trying to work on it, but we're not going to go biblical here. We're going to look at a worldview, because we're a worldview now. The world is interconnected now more than ever before in history. And the truth is, the world must be understanding that there are these prime gods. Now, why are there so many versions, let's say? If the prime God, the Father God, created everything and did all that he did, and he had a wife, the mother goddess, and there's beauty and all the other different gods and goddesses. There's the god of dreams even. In almost every culture you'll find the god of dreams, even the goddess of the night. And there's the goddess of magic. There's a health god. There's a music god. I mean, it goes on, litany on and on, right? Okay. I'm going to keep going on that aspect. But why are there so many different versions in these different cultures? You'll see that, you have Odin in the Norse, and then you have Thor. Now, oftentimes Thor gets confused as a war god because he was involved in a lot of wars, but oftentimes he is represented almost as a father god figure. And so, hence he's labeled as the son of Odin. Oftentimes you'll see this theme. Sons of a type of God are often their type again remade. And this has to do with the very fact that incarnations exist. If you're a biblical believing person, the fact that Jesus is an incarnation of the Father proves the point to you. He is a father God on earth. Odin was a father god on earth. Zeus, a father god on earth. The Yellow Emperor, a father god on earth. Ra, a father god on earth. Okay? And this is why we start to see over time these particular gods start to become more transitionally used. For instance, Horus then slowly was replaced with Ra. The reasoning for this is simple. Horus got old and died. He was the incarnation in life. And when he died, he went to the afterlife and he rules in his own god statue. And after his death is born another. And this other is Ra. Now, I know that maybe there's a big gap between their births, and I'm not being exactly literal here, but this gives the idea. The idea is that as the incarnation of a god on earth transitions to the next world, another one is created. Thus, every so often, every lifetime, there's a new god created. And this is why we continue to see gods and goddesses come about out of seemingly nowhere. This is why in the Hindu culture there's a great mass amount of them. They are incarnations, and they understand this a little better than we do. It's often cited in America as being reincarnation. But when it comes to gods and goddesses, they create another form for themselves on earth, and they are in it in their own right. It is an essence, a part of them is pulled into it. The Father takes a part of himself and puts it in his incarnation. The Mother does the same. Beauty, love does it. Health, night, dream, scholarly, the knowledge God, wars God, all of them do this. And that's how it works. And that is the basis. And the thing here, what this shows, is we actually have more in common with each other than we do apart. What separates us is theology, claiming that one is better than another. And that creates hatred. Theology is bad. It's dangerous. You can have your own traditions, and a tradition that clicks with you and really fills your soul with joy when you do it. But that doesn't mean it's for everyone. Openness of mind and knowledge that the gods are beyond just nationalistic borders is the key to everything in this. So, if you're ever wondering which God is the right one, you shouldn't be asking that question. You should be asking which one is the right one for you. Now we'll talk about that again soon.